Sometimes it feels like my mind attacks me. It tells me that I'm wrong, or that I'm not enough, or I'm a bad person, often for no reason whatsoever. So over the years, I've had to learn how to catch myself when I start beating myself up, so that I can get ahead of those self-critical thoughts and come back to what I actually believe. So we had some family photos taken a few weeks ago, and it was amazing to me how, as we were going through the pictures, every single person found faults with themselves. Even when there were some pictures where one person very obviously looked terrible, people would zero in on very minor comments. Oh, I look wrinkly here. My nose is too big in this one. Oh, is my arm really that fat? And it was just obvious. We are all self-critical. We all beat ourselves up, often for no real reason. But even though it's pretty easy for me to just laugh off that creepy half-eyed squint in picture number 17, I find that many of my self-critical thoughts can actually be pretty destructive. So today I want to share how I deal with that. I'm Kyle Greenfield with The Joy Within. I've been a stress and well-being coach for 10 years now. And if you head over to thejoywithin.org, you'll find a free, mindful path to cultivate more joy, peace, and well-being in your daily life. For me, the hardest moments are when my mind hits me with some version of not enoughness. Usually it's some variation on the thought, I am wrong or bad or not enough because I did or didn't do this. And often that's absolutely insane. I might say something like, I am a bad husband because I forgot to clean out the car. Or I am not enough because I didn't finish today's task list. I know that if I let these thoughts fester, they can feel like a punch in the gut. It's like my mind always knows exactly how to push my buttons and send me spiraling. So when this happens, my goal is to reset and come back to what I actually believe. Because deep down, I know that I'm not actually a terrible person because I forgot to follow up on that email. It happens. And despite whatever inner stories are swirling around in the moment, if I have a fundamentally empowering belief, all that I really need to do is remind myself of that. When I'm beating myself up, one of the ideas that I really like to come back to is perfect and yet evolving. This is something that came to me in meditation about 10 years ago now, and I continue to be fascinated by it. I am perfect, and yet I am evolving in that perfection. I just find there's this incredible sense of acceptance of both humility and power that's within this idea. In this moment, I am exactly as I should be. Everything is perfect, exactly as it is. Even as I continue to grow and evolve and move towards a better version of myself. I just find this so powerful because it means that I can be perfect even if I dropped the ball yesterday. I mean, I'm human. Get over it. And I just think the challenge is that when I'm in that self-critical state, I can't always get back to this belief. I sometimes get stuck in that feeling of not enoughness. And that's okay. I have to start with where I am. I just have to know that a better belief is out there somewhere, even if I can't feel it right now. So whatever that belief is for you, whether it's perfect and yet evolving, or a simple I am well, or I don't have to figure this all out right now. Whatever that belief is, just know that it's out there. Because just knowing that gives us a path forward. Immediately there's a schism, a separation, like drawing a line in the sand that says, wait a minute, these thoughts, this little voice that's beating me up, that's not really me. And I find that recognizing this is one of the single most important steps I can take because it interrupts that negative spiral and gives me the ability to move forward. So the first step is always to catch that negative story. This can be harder than it sounds. I know for me, often when I'm in that self-critical state, I don't even realize that I'm being negative. My mind thinks that it's being helpful. It thinks it's being realistic, when really it's being pessimistic. For example, when I'm being critical, I might tell myself that I'm just pushing myself to be better, but really I'm mad at myself for not being further along towards a goal. And over time, I have realized there are patterns to the way in which my mind does this. And if I can recognize these patterns, they become easier for me to spot in the moment. So that might sound like, I should or shouldn't have done this. Why can't I just? Or that was stupid. Or I'm so mad at myself for this. I find it helps to identify these patterns when I am calm, so that I can call my mind out on them the next time that they crop up. And I mean that literally. I want to call my mind out on the stories that it's telling me. I think a lot of people shy away from this. They shy away from recognizing the negative thought because they think it's too painful. but I actually find that it's more helpful to lean into it, to become very aware of what the mind is doing, so you can get to the root of it and actually make progress. I find that most of my pain comes from struggling against the thought, from believing that I shouldn't be thinking it or trying to shut it out of my mind. If I can acknowledge the critical thought, if I can just allow it to be, I find that very often that thought just wants to be heard. So I've had to train myself to accept it and say, you know what? It's okay to feel down about this right now. It's okay to be mad at myself about this right now. I find that when I lean in this way, it does two things. Firstly, it gives me just the tiniest bit of space, just a little bit of detachment from that thought. And secondly, it helps me to clarify it so that I can start to zero in on what the root cause of it might be. And that's important because my next step is to begin to rephrase that thought. And in order to do that, I need to be very clear about what the core thought actually is. I find that very often when I'm in one of those down states, I have not just one, but hundreds or 1,000 negative thoughts swirling around in my mind. And many of them aren't really that relevant. At best, they're tangential. So if I can zero in on what the root thought is, it helps me to get really clear on how to shift. And to do this, personally, I like to write it down. I want to be very precise here, and at a minimum, I will always speak a specific sentence aloud, because I want to narrow myself down to one and only one thought to work with. I like to use the form, I am this negative label because of this reason. So that sounds something like, I am a bad person for what I said to Jillian yesterday. Or, I am not enough because I didn't finish my work. Whatever it is, I try to make it really straightforward. I am bad or wrong or not enough because of this thing that I did or didn't do. And then I just breathe. I take a moment to reset. Now, I like to use Ujjayi breath here, if you know that, but any deep mindful breath will do. Once I start to feel a little more centered, then I can take ownership of that negative thought. So I take that sentence that I wrote down before and I repeat it in a form like this. In this moment, I am choosing to believe, and then I insert that sentence. And I want to use that very specific phrasing. In this moment, I am choosing to believe I am not enough because I didn't finish my task list. And this does two very powerful things. Firstly, it immediately softens the phrase because it points out that the negativity is temporary. In this moment, I feel this. Not in every moment, just right now. And secondly, it helps me take ownership of the phrase by pointing out that I am choosing that state of energy. I am choosing that thought, which brings it back into my realm of control. Often, when I'm in one of those self-deprecating states, I feel out of control of my thoughts. So taking ownership is about realizing that I am choosing this, even if it's not something that I prefer, even if I don't feel like it's a choice in that moment. By reasserting that to myself, I begin to take back control. I begin to think, you know what? I am choosing this, even if I don't feel like I am right now. So again, that sounds like, in this moment, I am choosing to believe that I am a bad person because I said that comment. Or, in this moment, I am choosing to believe I am not enough because I didn't finish my work yesterday. Write it down, speak it aloud, do whatever works for you. But I like to write it down because then I will look back at that sentence and I will reflect on it for a moment. I will start to ask myself questions. Questions like, do I actually believe that? Do I really believe that I can't reach my goal just because I had one bad day? Or do I really believe that I'm a terrible person because of that one comment that I made? No, obviously not. I obviously don't believe that. And the funny thing is that when I look squarely at that negative thought, it often sounds insane or even funny. Like, isn't it crazy that my ego places my entire sense of self-worth on how productive I was on one day? Pointing this out to myself pulls me away from that negative thought and helps me return to my normal state. I think one reason this process works is because often our negative thoughts feel like they're all-encompassing. They get stretched out and begin to take over almost our entire lives. So that one little thing that you did, that you're beating yourself up about, becomes distorted, and it feels more important than it actually is. Even when it feels like you're this horrible person because of that one thing that you did, when we look at it head on and say, wait a minute, do I actually believe that? It points out just how crazy that negative ego mind can be, just how crazy some of those hidden jumps are, and it helps to reel you back in to see with more clarity and perspective. If that doesn't work, if I'm beating myself up about some big issue that I've been struggling with for a long time, then I might use a slightly different variation. I might think, you know what, it's okay, I do actually believe this negative thought right now. But what is it that I prefer to believe? And saying what I prefer to believe is kind of like placing a marker on the field. It gives me somewhere to point. So I can start to think, okay, even if I can't get to that belief right now, I know that maybe eventually it's possible for me. I know that I'm not there yet, but I can learn, I can improve. Zeroing in on what I prefer helps to knock me out of that negative spiral and just take one step at a time. I think this works because I like to think of beliefs as ideas that I can step into when and how I choose. They're just thoughts that I choose to place a strong degree of focus on. And because I'm a total nerd, I always think of the piece Pictures at an Exhibition, which is by composer Mussorgsky, made famous by Ravel. Basically, it's a piece of music that depicts walking through an art gallery. And as you go through the museum, you step into different paintings that are in the museum. So every movement of the piece walks into one of the paintings and imagines what it's like to live in that scene. And I think that beliefs work in more or less the same way. I can choose right now to step into this belief. I can look at this painting on the wall. And yes, maybe I'll be there for a little while, and that's okay. But later, I can choose a different belief. I can choose to look at that painting, and I'll explore that for a while. And this helps me to realize that the negative states that I'm in are not permanent. They are choices that I make. And even when I don't feel in control of that choice now, I know that on a longer time horizon, I absolutely can make a different choice. So that's it. That's the process. Catch your self-critical patterns, clarify the core thoughts behind them, then begin to rephrase those thoughts and step into a preferred belief. So I hope you give this a try the next time you feel like you're beating yourself up for whatever reason. And if you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone that you love. When you're ready to go deeper, you can find more free trainings, guided exercises, and meditations at thejoywithin.org.